I would like to acknowledge CCHR for the belief in us. They believed us and they cared. The children of Lake Alice, I support their efforts to seek justice, which is why I joined forces with them. There were other staff and psychiatrists working at Lake Alice, including Superintendent Dr. Pugmire. They were indirectly or directly complicit through their silence and therefore culpable.
Just before we start, just a couple of technical matters, nothing to do with you, Paul, at all. The first thing is that I need to formally lift the embargo for the evidence of Victor Soteris. It's done now. And also I understand that when I took the affirmation from Andrew Jane this morning, that for some reason it wasn't recorded, and I want to confirm that I administered the affirmation and that he agreed to tell the truth, and that's for the record. It's formally on there now. Which brings us importantly to you, Paul Zentveld. Welcome formally to the hearing space, and I know you've been around a long time keeping in touch. Thank you to your two supporters again. Can I give you the affirmation before we begin? All right. Do you solemnly, sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence you give to the Commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
I do.
Apparently there's a trick, and that is that you point the microphone at your shoulder.
Chin. Chin. Point it to the chin.
Or chin? No.
I don't know. It's
technology.
Chin will do. Right, I'm going to leave you with Miss Joychild. Thank you.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Before I start asking you to read your evidence, I'll just give the Commissioners an overview that your first admission, he was 13 years old, and Paul spent 3 years and 1 week in Lake Alice in all, over 5 admissions. He is the second to longest survivor who has been in Lake Alice of our group. And he was diagnosed with a behaviour disorder. Paul, can you please read your statement? We're not going to run through your early life because we want to make most use of the time.
Yes.
So we're going to skip some paragraphs and start with paragraph 7.
Oh, no. Yes. Getting old. Okay, I was seen by Craig Jackson when I was 11 years old after a complaint at school of me threatening another child and truanting.
And now if we go down to paragraph 9, you're going to talk about how you came to be in Lake Alice.
Okay, they found nothing wrong with me. The report dated November 71 by Jackson. Department of Education found there was 2 exceptions. I was otherwise a personally and cooperative, friendly boy with no typical features noted to either his classroom behaviour or academic level. I was also noted that the behaviour of concern to the school would appear to be episodic and not symptomatic to any seated personally disturbance.
Right.
Then they called in Victor Soteris. That was back in 71.
Sorry, can we just check where you're at here in the book?
Well, he's now gone to paragraph 10.
Oh, that's fine.
A psychologist from a place called Manaroa, which was just down the road from the hospital. I walked with him over there. I didn't tell him that I was sort of shocked that I was going there because I knew or thought Manaroa was a place where mentals went. I went into the building with him and attended this discussion group, but I thought it was just a waste of time. I was put through psychological tests with Victor Soteris in 72. I was 12 years old.
Next paragraph. after that you stopped going to group discussions, you were still the same and you were getting into trouble again.
Yes, I tried to talk to Victor Sutrick, but he wasn't there. Instead, there was a
Psychiatrist.
psychiatrist whose name was Dr. Selwyn Leeks, and he looked at Mum's report and said I would try a wee while at Lake Alice Hospital.
Right.
And then he sent me to Lake Alice, got my mother to drop me off. For the first time on the 22nd of March 1974, I was 13 years old.
Can you remember, Paul, at that stage was Mr. Dempsey had started, or was his charge nurse still?
No, he was later.
Yeah, that was later. So
He
you were
was-
there before.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Dempsey. Okay, thank you. Now, paragraph 12.
Okay, so I was 13 years old when I was first admitted. The first day I was there, just after lunch, all these guys were sitting around the day room. The nurses introduced me and showed me all around the place. All meals were provided, choice. I thought it was like a Sunday camp the first week there, and then I started getting all drugged up. Some other kids had told me it was a loony bin. I went to discussion groups run by Victor Sutrick. During the first week, I wouldn't talk, so I started getting punished. So that was a start, because you're shy, you didn't know anyone, you were just trying to fill the place. Within a week, I was given formaldehyde for making insolent remarks towards the staff and misbehaving.
Can I just pause you there, Paul? You heard Mr. Sutrick yesterday saying that he never ordered anyone to get punishment from the group therapy. How do you know you were being punished for not speaking up at group therapy?
Oh, just blank. Can you please answer the...
Yeah, we'll wait till the end.
Just do the question again?
Yeah. Oh, the question is, you said earlier that you were, you started getting punished because you were shy, you didn't know anyone, and you weren't speaking up. So why do you believe you were being punished because you didn't speak up?
Well, because he sent me upstairs. This was all about yesterday with my outburst, sorry.
All right.
I was just being transparent.
So are you saying that during the discussion group you were sent upstairs?
Yeah, no. He would put my name forward. This is what it was all about. So after the group was finished, next minute...
Selwyn Leeks would
Yep.
come in
Yep.
and you were sent upstairs?
No, he wouldn't come in. He was already waiting upstairs. And the staff would say, you upstairs, or you upstairs. And then these will be taken upstairs. For the first time, I didn't know what was happening, but every other time was struggling and fighting. They were dragging us up because we knew what was going to happen. But
how did you know that Victor Sutrick was the reason why you were...
well, we didn't.
You didn't know
Not
that?
the first time.
Right.
And then the other boys told me he's running the group. So that's why I was a little bit shocked yesterday when he tried to say he was an observer until you showed that letter. So
He was running the groups.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was his job every Friday, and then later on it changed to Wednesday. But at the time, that's what was why we're getting so much grief going upstairs with shock treatment. It wasn't Dr. Leeks running on his nursing notes or the staff. It was that man there.
Right, so he came in the morning and did group therapy. Dr.
Yep.
Leeks did the ECT in the afternoons.
Just slow
Yes.
down a wee bit, please.
Dr. Victor Sutrick had nothing to do with going upstairs and giving ECT. He was correct there. He wasn't actually giving the medication, the formaldehyde, but it was his. It was on his professional evidence, I would say, and he was the ones. So he was the one who's putting our names forward. There was no one else. He was God. And as an adult, I'm saying, who gave him the right to be God? So that's why I nicknamed him Dr. Leeks' right-hand man, because it wasn't Dr. Leeks' choice. So we were told if you don't, over a period of time, if you didn't talk in the group, if you just sat there smirking or smiling to play safe, that wasn't enough. When it was your time, and he was doing all the, it was up to him. It was his group. It wasn't the nurses' aides running it. It wasn't Dr. Leeks running it. He never even came into the groups. So quite often after the groups were finished, then Dr. Leeks would arrive. There's a little combi van.
So when you say we were told that if we didn't speak up, we'd go up, who told you that?
He did.
Victor Suter
Yes.
told you?
And then Dr. Leeks would say, "Oh, we've heard you've been not talking again, so we'll just give you something to think about."
Right. And that was
So
before?
when there was the groups, a combination of the groups, me wetting the bed, and I was actually horrified yesterday because they knew I had a medical problem in that letter. For years, yeah. So
Okay.
it's basically, how dare they? So there was a combination of the nurses with your attitude and behaviour. One reason you go upstairs, or and that was Dr. Leeks bringing, with the staff ordering you up there, but mainly in the groups, Victor Sutrick.
Right.
And then later on, as I got to know the school teachers, it depended how good, if you were trouble at school or not learning, then you would get ECT, because the doctor would be telling you why you're getting it.
Right.
That was how you knew.
So he told you before each ECT why you were
Yes.
giving it?
Yes.
Okay.
And just with that smirk on his face, he just seemed to love it.
Okay, well, we'll run through because we're going to get to the
Yep.
ECT soon. So we're at paragraph 14.
Yep. I did not like it at Lake Callis. After 2 weeks there, I started to give the wrong impression to the staff by playing up, and for that I got ECT, and boy, I hated that. I recall waiting in the day room with other kids. One of the nurses, Steve Hunt, who was a charge nurse, called me up as I was unfamiliar with ECT. I willingly walked with him upstairs and down the corridor into the second room on the left. The room contained a long bed, that's wrong. The room contained a long bed, no shutters, and a trolley on one side. That was the ETC room. And the next two rooms had the shutters, where we would wake up.
Okay.
I recall taking my shoes and belt and laying on the bed. Terry Conlon and Steve Hunt were in the room at the time, holding me down. I recall a kidney-shaped dish containing headphones which were soaking in liquid. This was on the trolley next to the bed. At this stage, Dr. Leeks walked in the room, introduced himself and said he was going to give me some of this to teach me a lesson and to let me know what it was like. He also said that he wanted me to start talking during the group therapy sessions. There's your answer. Terry applied gel to my temples, a hand towel which was rolled in a sausage-like and put in my mouth. The hand towel was to gag me to ensure I wouldn't bite my tongue. The experience of unmodified ECT was pure pain. After receiving ECT for the first time, my next recollection was waking up in bed with water running out of my mouth. I was in there for 2 months and got sent home on the 24th of May, 74. My diagnosis was listed as behavioural disorder and reactive depression. This is taken off the my file, staff notes.
That's right.
I went back to school at Queen Elizabeth College. There was some interaction between the principal of Queen Elizabeth College, Ted Worthington, and Dr. Leeks of Lake Alice, as he wrote to him in August 74 saying, I wanted to see Dr. Leeks about my relationship with my family. He also wrote, I was very hyperactive and a worry to the school.
Just don't worry about that.
Yep.
Just move to
I hated the ECT at Lake Alice and I thought it was for punishment for being naughty. I told the principal this, and in my medical file there was a letter he wrote to Dr. Leeks saying that I was frightened of ECT and I saw it as punishment for being naughty. And as I was to be readmitted to Lake Alice Hospital in August 21st.
Okay.
One of the issues I had was bedwetting due to a complication when I was circumcised as a baby, due to religious beliefs of my parents. This, however, was never examined as a physical problem when I was at Lake Alice. Instead, it soon as a psychological problem.
Let's pause there. The physical problem was that you had an undiagnosed at that time ulcer,
Yes.
didn't you, on the skin near where your
Yes.
foreskin had been cut?
I didn't find that out till 2006.
Yeah.
Even my mother thought I was doing it on purpose, nursing notes. In my adulthood, there was a guy who done that. So I was given formaldehyde as punishment for throwing apples on August the 74. I got ECT on 31st of August 74 for sticking the vacuum cleaner in a bucket of hot water with another patient when another patient wouldn't move it. I thought it could go and then it would come out and squirt out like a gun at the other school kids. That was my north. I jumped onto a freight train to Wellington, but I was scared there, so I jumped onto another one, but this time Masterton, and that was where I got caught and brought back to Lake Alice 5 days later. After I returned to the hospital by the police, I was put in a shuttered room. Dr. Leeks then came to shock me. The instance of ECT is not recorded in the notes.
Can I just pause you there, Paul? You're one of the few people with a full set of notes, aren't you?
I don't know.
Right, okay.
You're asking the wrong person.
But you do have a full set of your notes?
Yes, because I got them out myself.
Yep, okay. And you got them very early on?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Now we'll go on to paragraph 25.
On the 10th of October 1974, I and another boy were causing a disruption when watching TV. I was given electric shocks and placed in a seclusion room for the following day. My nursing notes recorded that both of us got a blast, which seemed to pacify the situation. I was given formaldehyde on 18th of October 1974 for continual agitation and falling in the bathroom. I was given formaldehyde on the 22nd of October, 3 days, apparently to help me sleep and to deflate my exuberant behaviour, according to the nursing notes. I was discharged on the 19th of December 19th. Dr. Leeks considered I was doing better in the group discussions and my bedwetting had improved. I was sent home. The cause of my... Yep.
Now we're up to paragraph 29.
We're just going over the same.
Right, so we'll go up to paragraph 30.
Yep. While I was in Lake Alice, I was going to group therapy with psychologist Victor Sutrick, as this was part of my treatment under Dr. Leeks.
Okay, now we'll go on to your third admission.
Third admission, I was admitted to Lake Alice for the third time on 8th of January 75, following a disruptive holiday with my family at Foxton Beach. There were disputes with family members and fights with my siblings. On the 14th of February 75, I was given unmodified ECT for accused of adopting a threatening attitude to a female staff member. Dr. Leeks saw me and gave me ECT that afternoon. 2 days later, on the 16th, I was placed in a seclusion room for several nights after being caught fighting in the dormitory. Then a month later, on the 17th of March, I was transferred to Villa 11 and was made to sleep in a seclusion room for several nights. The room was locked overnight. This was for causing disturbances in the dormitory. I added this a little bit because this is the only fun we had. So pillow fights was the only fun we could have and laugh together. That's the whole dorm. It was massive. So we were all rebelling. So I escaped on the night, 1st of April 75, along with another boy. We were found the next day. This time we were put in Villa 8 and I was locked up for over a week. I was allowed to in Villa 8 in the day room, but only in my pyjamas. I was given kitchen duties for a while, and after that absconded from Lake Alice, according to the nursing notes. I went back to Villa 11, and after some home leave, I was discharged 15th in 75. The fourth admission. I came back to Lake Alice on the fourth time on the 24th, 1975, and was being accused of stealing $20. I ran away from home. Dr. Leeks advised my mother to send me back. It was the admission period that I had was given a lot of ECT, which was both modified and unmodified, and given as punishment for my behaviour. The ECT notes from 1975 record 11 entries. ECT notes. Yep. On the 30th of July, 75, I was given priority for fighting. On the 6th of August, 75, the ECT started. This was given to me in Villa 6, the girls' ward. It was modified. It says the nursing notes, he has become increasingly vague and inappropriate, paranoid, ECT ×4 prescribed by Dr. Leeks. I was given ECT over the next 12 days, and I developed headaches and chest complaints and was put on antibiotics. During that time, I was again locked in seclusion and given priority as punishment. My behaviour did not change much despite the ECT almost every day. On the 28th of August, my father was advised to call me less frequency. I had also asked my mother to stop visiting. On the 30th of August, there was a nursing note saying, I challenged one of the female nurses and I wouldn't do what she asked. The note says, I was seen as potentially dangerous, as his behaviour is much more vindictive and impulsive since the completion of his recently completed ECT course. Dr. Leeks then ordered unmodified ECT ×2. Each course had 25 times or 25 days in each course. The CLO.
Are you saying the unmodified or the...
Yeah, the one that they put you to sleep when they take you to the girls' villa.
Yep, 25.
That was 25 in a course.
Mm-hmm.
That's 25 days.
Mm-hmm.
After more reports about my behaviour, Dr. Leeks prescribed 3 more modified ECTs sessions in Villa 6. I was also heavily medicated on the 26th of September 75. There was a nursing note saying I'm in a continual dream-like state, as if not quite with us. Now, if you're a teenager, you'd love this. Okay. After that, there was 4 more modified ECTs in October from the 2nd to the 13th. Then on the 15th of October, it was reported that I smile inappropriately and facetiously during group discussion, although my behaviour was being greatly modified since completion of ECT. I was wising up to the games, and I would sit there saying nothing and smile. I would also go outside and sit under the birch tree across the road reading my books to be safe. I would only come inside when I was called. When I visited the grounds of Lake Alice in the early 2000s, the tree was still there and my name initials etched into it, PAD. On the 19th of November 75, I had stopped taking my medication for 3 days because I was becoming scared I was becoming high. I was persuaded to continue with the medication in 76. Bad boy. I went on home leave to 28th of December 75 over New Year's, and I went back into Lake Alice on the 9th of January 76. On the 25th of January, I wrote to Mum and the new dad and the kids saying I wanted to work with my original dad when it was all right with him, but would also look for another job in the meantime. I was still in Lake Alice because I was doing newspaper deliveries, paper boy. So.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in Lake Alice when I wrote this letter, and I included that Victor Sutrick said he had given up on me in the discussion group and that he was going to tell Dr. Leeks to let me go home. I was put on medication and discharged to my mother's place at the end of the month in January. I was on psychiatric medication while at home.
Now, we're not going to read the next few paragraphs, but they describe what you were doing at home. You were working for a while, and there was a bit of conflict in the family.
Yeah.
So we'll now...
Many years later, my sister apologised to me for setting me up because she knew I'd be sent to Lake Alice. I never forgave her for that.
Right.
We're not together anymore as brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, Mum and I went to see Dr. Leeks and I went back to Lake Alice. I made up my mind that if I got any ECT, I would take off. Despite efforts by my mother to either return me to Lake Alice or turn me over to social welfare, neither wanted me. The family situation was not much better, but clearly the treatment and punishment at Lake Alice made things worse for me, not better. I believe Dr. Leeks did not want me back there. So, after a long discussion, I was admitted back to Lake Alice on the 5th time, on 7th of April 1976, aged 15. Admission papers, yep. This time it was under Section 19 of the Mental Health Act as an involuntary patient, in other words, ward of the state. I was treated once again in the adolescent children's unit. On the, just a brief one on that. I never forgave my mother. She went to her grave unforgiven, and that was my wish. I never forgave her for signing me over to the state. On the 11th of April 76, I was given formaldehyde for quarrelling and disturbing other patients, and also made to sleep in a seclusion room.
Can I just pause you there, Paul? When you're talking about your mother, did you tell your mother you were being electric shocked?
Yep.
And did she believe you?
No, because the authorities are always right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll start at paragraph 58.
I read that. My notes on the 10th of May 1976 record that I was suspicious and paranoid. With all of this treatment using drugs and electric shocks as punishment for my behaviour, I had deep distrust in the staff at Lake Alice, but especially of Dr. Leeks and Victor Sutrick. I saw them as working in conjunction and behind the treatment I was getting. On the 29th of May 1976, I was given oral formaldehyde for fighting with 2 other patients. I was put in the seclusion room again on the 3rd of June for fighting and oral formaldehyde again for boyish behaviour on the 14th of June. In the nursing notes on the 9th of June, it says, still the same young Dixon, a smile like a Cheshire cat, abounds, always thinking he's smart. Then on the 14th of June, I was given oral formaldehyde for boyish behaviour. On the 19th of June, 76, I was organising to abscond with some other boys and got caught. When I was asked by one of the staff why I wanted to get out, I said I was hacked off with being committed. On the 7th of July, I was given Largactil for being involved in a pillow fight. So, leaving Lake Alice, when I got to 16 years of age, I became an adult and was put into the adult villa under Dr. Bill Carr. He was my lifesaver. They moved me from Villa 7 to Villa 8 on the 16th of July, the adult wards. It was great because within 5 months I was chucked out of there. After 3 months I was off my medication. Dr. Carr said, we're throwing you out. You don't need to be here. There is nothing wrong with you. You shouldn't have even been in those other villas. I was a committed patient. He saved my bacon. He got me out of there. No more shock treatment because Dr. Leeks wasn't in control anymore. I'll remember that till I die. Mm-hmm. I worked in a store truck until the 20th of July, over a month. I found working to be beneficial for me. I kept out of trouble. On the 3rd of November, I was discharged for the final time. Dr. Carr said, "What do you want to do?" I said, because I live by the airport with my mother, I want to do skydiving. Dr. Carr said, "Yes, sweet." And I was the best out of my class of that year, out of 3 jumps, closest to the target, so I achieved something. It was a thrill. While I was in Lake Alice this final time, I was on intramuscular modicate, 50 millimetres every 3 weeks, and Artane 1 milligram. I was treated in the villa with group psychologist Victor Sutrick, schooling and ECT from Dr. Leeks. This is all detailed in a letter to Dr. Mackay, Benson Medical Officer. So for the bullying and the abuse, I was never sexually abused or bullied or badly bullied. There was a gang of 4 of us that hung out together and looked out for each other. I could stick up for myself. For a lot of the time I was there, it seemed like about 80% of the boys were Maori. They had come from violent... Where are you going? They had come from violent boys' homes like Kawatiri, Hokio and also Holsworth. They were pretty aggressive. I understood that I was admired because I was picked on so often by the staff for ECT, but I showed the staff I didn't care. I was strong and stubborn, and I remember once I was locked down for 2 weeks and just sat there staring at the wall. I wouldn't talk, and I was getting quite used to it. I even stopped blinking. They tried to shock me out of it, but each time I was put back, I just stared at the wall and wouldn't talk. In the end, Brian Stabb come in and for any spare time just to get away from everyone else because they didn't like me being picked on all the time. Mm-hmm. But basically those 2 said, ECT on the gym, no way, this is out of whack. This is my police statement. Mm-hmm. So, finally they had a heart. Mm-hmm. Being in the boys' villa was like being in a hole with a whole lot of boys. We were stoned all the time. Everyone was on drugs of some sort. We wasted so many days being drugged out.
Okay.
schooling. I didn't learn anything at school. I remember 2 teachers, Anna Natush and Sheila Daly. They were kind enough and like mother figures. At Lake Alice, if you do something wrong, didn't do your schoolwork or not talk in the groups, upstairs for shock treatment. That was the start. This was after the first couple of weeks. Everyone else was getting it as well. Every Friday the boys would all be sitting there, shaking, waiting for Leeks to come in through the door. You, and I found out what it was about. I was just as bad as them. Wetting your pants while sitting on the seat couldn't be helped. The ECT sessions usually occurred on a Friday when Leeks would come around about 9 or 10 a.m. in his white combi van and have discussions with the staff while we were sitting in the day room in a big circle waiting and being scared in case your name was called to go upstairs. Sometimes the doctor would visit on a Wednesday if some other boys had played up. The nurses would say, oh well, we'll do him, and we'll do him. Dr. Leeks would come in during the week or any time. He was on call. He would come in for one thing and suddenly there was 2 or 3 of other boys going upstairs for the same thing, for things they had done, like they even smashed a plate or something.
Was this when Dr. Leeks was living at Lake Alice?
At the house.
At the house.
Sometimes, I'm only saying this because I think this is more significant than the other stuff. Sometimes 2 or 3 of us would get called singly and were taken to individual single rooms where we would be left on our own, looking at plywood shutters over the windows with 1-inch thick circles for the fingers, so you could open them, but they were locked. To wait our turn and listening to the screams of the other boys of getting ECT, knowing we were next. We were all individual people in there, but we all felt for each other on ECT days. We were all family back then. The ECT I got was mostly on the head. I had also got it on my knees and scrotum about 3 times. I would be held down by 3 of the nurses, on one on each knee and 1 holding, or 2 holding my shoulders. 3 or 4, I couldn't remember. Usually Terry Collin or Steve Hunt on my shoulders and 2 others on my knees. I can't recall exactly how many times I got ECT for what, but I got it at least 12 times for group therapy sessions to try and change my attitude. Mischievous behaviour, not getting on with other people, having an argument with some of the other guys, not eating meals, not talking in a group, that's what started it. I wouldn't talk, so I'd go upstairs for ECT. Then I'd talk and get myself into trouble. Then I got more ECT. That's when the willpower game started. Wetting the bed, ECT. You'd be on more drugs, so you'd being like a zombie. The first time it wasn't for mischievous behaviour, it was because I wouldn't talk. You could get ECT for not talking in the group discussions run by Victor Sutrick. Not bad for a part-timer, eh? Or it was up to the head nurse. They would look through the notes for the week, like we would have mass storm fights, because we were bored or something to do. It would make us all happy, but the night nurse would come up, sneak up, shine the torch, you. We would pretend to be asleep. Come with me. Proud hide, or the next morning, Dr. Leeks would come, you upstairs. Sometimes there would be 9 or 10 of us going up in a line just waiting. Then they come down, get a couple more, and sometimes there would be a big runs of them.
Was that after playing up in the evenings in the dormitory?
Yeah.
Yep.
During the ECT, Dr. Leeks would pause and say something smart, like, we're going to change your way of thinking, or you've been bad, Paul. We've got to change your thoughts. Then he would run He would turn the dial up, then he would give you a bit more. It was always in threes. Once, then stop for about 10 seconds, I think. 15 at the most. Then he would turn it to the right up and push the button, and that's it. You'd wake up and no one was there. Naked and looking at the plywood shutters over the windows. You feel like shit. You want to just get the bastards. Any bastard was there. You'd lie there for a couple of hours. Then the nurses would come in. Come on, Paul, come on down, have a tea. The staff would feel sorry for you the first time, trying to cheer you up with biscuits and Milo.
Can I pause you there, Paul, and ask another question? You say you were naked. Were you given ECT when you were near naked?
Most of the time. Oh, they used to take our shoes off, the belts, anything, because they needed to hold you. If you had clothes on, I suppose they couldn't hold you. I don't know. I was just a kid.
Did you ever get it after the shower?
I just remember having baths. That's
Yeah.
all. There were baths up there.
Yeah. And
I've lost a lot of my memory on that place. It was
Right.
just, I forgot about it. I put it beside me, because when I got to Nelson, I started my fishing career. And the only people that believed me was the Salvation Army, and I just haven't looked back,
fine.
apart from my medical issues. There we go. Oh, yeah. Where do you want to go to next?
Now, could you go to paragraph 89?
I remember my father coming along once and he found out that I was where I was. He came to see me. Dennis Heseltine told me later, on a Sunday I was upstairs getting zapped. He was bawling his eyes out. I want to see my son. And that was the authority in them days. Sorry, you'll have to come back later, because Dennis Heseltine told me later. He had made a special effort to come and see me. He was bawling his eyes out, and he left. He wanted to do something, and he couldn't. And he could hear me screaming. My father said later, years down the track, as well. Nothing he could do. When I was in Lake Alice, I would write letters. When I wrote to Mr. Corcoran, one of the head nurses, saying I wanted to know what was going to happen to me because I was getting sick of asking and getting same answers. I wrote that I sometimes talked in the group, but I wasn't sure what to say, which worried me because I didn't talk. I would get kicked out of group and might even get ECT. Letter to Mr. Corcoran. I wrote an angry letter to Dr. Leeks about how I wanted to stay with my first father and that he could give me as much ECT and security in Villa 8, but I would not change my mind. How the ECT was ministered as follows. Ready?
Yeah. Do you want to read that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
They would lay me on the bed forcibly because I would struggle. I knew what was coming and I was petrified because it really hurt and didn't want it, so I would struggle for my life. 3 nurses would hold me down, maybe 4. Dr. Leeks would come in and put on white gloves. Then the nurse at my shoulders would roll up a toweling flannel and force it into my mouth, across my mouth, so I was biting it. Dr. Leeks would put jelly stuff on my temples, and for the first round, shock delivered. I honestly don't know how long it was, because it was just living in hell. Stop, readjust the dial upwards, and second round delivered. Stop, readjust the dial upwards, and third round delivered. Stop and push the button, and fourth round delivered, and then unconscious. When the first round is delivered, the pain is unbearable. You could see black zigzags going through your head. Same as the second and the third rounds, black zigzags still in your head. Excruciating pain. You just want to die. In the third round, your teeth were sore from the pressure of biting and down, and the fourth round, bliss because you were unconscious. ECT to the kneecaps, same as the above, except the jelly was applied to the sides of your knees. Readjust the dial upwards after the shocks. Jelly to the temple, zap, delivered, bliss, unconscious. ECT to the scrotum. Jelly to the scrotum, zapped. Jelly to the scrotum, zapped. Jelly to the temple, zapped. Bliss, unconscious. I got this for bedwetting, apparently doing it on purpose. They said, assume it occurred on a Friday, but I can't really recall. I am able to remember this occasion because it was particularly painful because it required to wait for 10 to 15 minutes in the day room, during which time I was exceptionally scared. While I was held down prior to the receiving ECT, Dr. Leeks informed me that the reason for the ECT was to combat my continually wetting the bed. Dr. Leeks said, I am sick and tired of you wetting the bed, so I am going to give you something to think about. I was also exposed to 3 sets of ECT. It was first applied to my head, then my knees, then my testicles, because prior to the ECT being applied to my testicles, I recall biting down hard on the towel on this occasion. Terry You would also receive an injection before ECT was given, so you were asleep. When you wake up, you would be given Milo and biscuits, and you would have a splitting headache. You would be dragged back by 2 nurses because you couldn't walk properly. I was supposed to have 2 lots of 24 ECT treatments. During the first block of 24, they stopped after I received 12 treatments. That's 1 each day. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why they stopped. In the second lot of 24 treatments, they stopped after 16. The modified ECT was not pleasant, but at least it was much better than unmodified ECT. Dr. Leeks never gave me modified ECT. I didn't know who gave it to me. I was asleep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, paragraph 98.
I was given formaldehyde for punishment. A nurse would give the injection for putting their arm around my middle like a waistlock and bending me over to administer the injection to my left or right buttocks. The formaldehyde was really painful and made you smell like, your breath smell like the bark of a tree, and I can still recall that smell even as an adult now. The Dr. Leeks administered the formaldehyde injections. Dr. Leeks never administered.
Yep, that's
Dr. Leeks never gave the formaldehyde injections, the nurses did. I recall receiving formaldehyde injections for pillow fighting, throwing an apple, saying something cheeky to the nurses, and when I ran away twice from Lake Alice. While in Lake Alice, I was administered Imperim.
You don't need to read that list out, Paul. It's just a list of drugs, unless you want to.
They got no meaning to me. We'll use this target practice for pillow fighting. There would be 3 or 4 of us in the little medical room.
Like at a
On
dartboard,
the syringe, yeah. Yeah.
and then he'd come up and push the syringe in.
Go like that. He wouldn't do just one, or four of us. He would tease us and say, "You, boom," and you hear the scream, and then the next one we were shitting us, and then he wouldn't pick on the next. He would go to the next one and then come back. He was playing games with us all the time, just for pillow fighting. Thank you. I was put in seclusion many times. The rooms were about 3 metres square with a thin mattress and no blankets. I often spent the night in these rooms. They had special plywood shutters with small holes in them on the windows, so you couldn't see out. The room was very dark with the lights when turned out. There were photos in the room taken on a visit to Lake Alice in the 2000s, the Lake Alice seclusion room that I took with TVNZ. School at Lake Alice. I went to school at Lake Alice and they issued school reports each term. School report of me, 9th of May 75. I don't think I learnt much because, except my teacher was Sheila Daly and I had a crush on her. I had Anna Natusha as a teacher as well. I did not read more, which was noted on the 19th December school report. I also wrote on this report that I couldn't do much as the ECT affected me a lot and the drugs I was on. After my final discharge at Lake Alice in November 76, I was transferred to Ferguson House, a halfway house in Palmerston North. I was given a final psychiatric assessment by another Lake Alice hospital doctor,
Don't need to say that.
on the 14th of July 77. From his assessment, which was in my medical file, he considered my attitude of suspicious and distrust was a paranoid schizophrenic condition and required compulsive psychiatric treatment.
And then he failed to see.
He failed to see that my deep-seated issues of distrust was largely born out of this psychiatric treatment and abuse I received at Lake Alice Hospital. I left for Australia and where I was for 8 months, I got mixed up with the wrong people with results of conflicts with the criminal justice system, and I was deported back to New Zealand. I got back to Palmerston North, then flew to Nelson, where I stayed with the Salvation Army Lodge. They taught me things I didn't know, such as personal hygiene. They got me a job unloading fish at Sea Lords. That was the start of my fishing career. And they were the only ones that believed me up till then. No one cared, the police, anybody, because they didn't believe us.
Okay.
While I was unloading fish from a fishing boat, I was offered work on a fishing boat. I did that for 2 years. I was drinking at that time. Then with encouragement, I cleaned up and went into schooling, and with great difficulty, I managed to pass exams, getting my skipper's ticket. I have been involved in the commercial fishing commissioning ever since. For the last 11 years, I've been employed as a skipper for a fishing company, doing charter cruises in the Hauraki Gulf. I have a lot to thank the Salvation Army for. I don't know where I would be if they hadn't got me working in that industry. It gave me confidence and the start I needed. I also had a garage motor business in Glendine for a while and employed 2 people. I have had 2 children from separate relationships and a 5-year-old grandchild. I'm on my own now. I lost my sibling relationships after Lake Alice. Oh, that's my brothers and sisters. No one believed me what I had been through. Like for me, I was better not to be around them. I have always found it hard to be intimate in a relationship. For health, I was taking 16 Nurofen tablets per day to address my migraines and blinding headaches. I attribute this to the ECT I got while in Lake Alice Hospital. I saw a psychiatrist in 2002 about my headaches. It was only after the activity around Lake Alice case came up. I put on a drug, or she put me on a drug which I took for a day, but after I started hallucinating on it, I stopped it. I won't take drugs anymore. I won't ever seek psychiatric treatment ever again. I never had counselling apart from that with the psychiatrist. I still have migraines frequently. I've learnt to live with the pain. I also have explosions in my head, like a hand grenade going off right beside me. I've asked my partner, did you hear that? And she said, no, you're making it up. This can happen daytime or night time, and happens when I'm being asked or trying to remember things about Lake Alice. I have to shake my head to get back to normal. I suffer panic attacks occasionally. I control the bedwetting by not drinking anything in the evening and no coffee. My body aches all the time, and I have cramping in my joints. And I have cramp attacks. Yeah, cramp attacks, I call them, where your legs are just aching all the time, and then they really sting. And there's nothing I can do about it. In 2001, I was in Auckland, and I heard about the Grant Cameron case action on the radio. I found his number and called him, but I was told I was 2 weeks too late. The person on the phone advised me to get my medical files, which I did, and he told me how to do it. I then called Martin Johnson of the New Zealand who ran the stories about other Lake Alice claimants. Then Annette King announced there was going to be a second round. Dr. David Collins QC was assigned, and he got in touch with me. I sent him my medical file, and he said he was up all night reading it. That was how the second round started. Months later, I got a visit from David Collins and Judge Gallen when they interviewed me. Initially, I was told by David Collins that I would be receiving $114,000 as a payout, which I initially agreed to, and a letter of apology from the Prime Minister, Helen Clark. The Herald stated that Clark promised a Crown-funded free lawyer. That's extra.
Yeah, adding that in. Okay.
I was then later informed that I would be receiving $80,000, as there was around $34,000 taken off for legal fees. Huh? A Crown-funded free lawyer, what the hell? If I had been told that 30% of the determination I received would be taken from the final determination, I would not have agreed to sign the agreement set out in front of me by the Crown. I thought we were getting free legal advice. It was for this reason I decided to contest the decision with a legal suit. I'd just like to add that I had big arguments with Christine Liddell from the Crown Law Office. This is the legal team, and she said, take the goddamn cheque. You never, if you take us to court, you'll never win. So I took them to court. Mm-hmm. So I that's right. I rang up David Collins, who was going around with Judge Gallen around New Zealand, seeing all of us, and he said, just take the damn cheque and we'll sort it out later. That sorting out later never happened.
Right, so you did take the cheque at the time?
Yeah, I didn't want to, but they said take it and we'll sort it out later. So I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have.
Okay, so then did you try and find a lawyer, or did CCHR help you?
Nope, I'd done it all on my own.
Okay.
So I worked out, so I got the damn cheque, and I bought up I bought my boat, my fishing boat, for my future.
Right.
So in the meantime, I worked out how the hell am I going to do this? Set them up with their own game. So I looked at the contract, and I said, who's on the bottom of that? Grant Adams, choice. So I rang up the ministry, Grant Adams, thank you for giving me my cheque. I spent it well, and and just like to say thank you. But why did they take the deduction off me? Why was I lost 34,000? Oh, we had to because of this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Have a good day. So a week later, 5 days later, I rang him back. And I said, Mr. Liddell, I've got to live with this for the rest of my life. Got short-term memory loss. I can't remember what you said. Can you tell me again, please? And he said, blah, blah, blah. And I said, can you sort of, I won't remember that next week. Can you put that down in writing? Yeah, sure. 2 days later, I got it in the mail. And I thought, Minister of Health, top headline, him signed on the bottom. You know, held it for 2 days, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm proud of that. Then I thought, I'll give Grant Cameron a ring. I told him what happened, he didn't believe me. And so I faxed it to him because I had my own garage. Next day, he rang me back and he said, I don't know how you got this, but I'm coming up tomorrow. So, yeah. So I called Steve up, CCHA, and I said, guess what's happened? I'm getting a visitor, Grant Cameron. How come? I told him what I'd done, and I said, I think I need a witness to this. So Grant Cameron arrived. Grant Cameron arrived to my workshop. Steve came from his house, and Grant Cameron wanted to take us out to lunch, so he did. And he told us both, and I had my witness, that he was going to do this case for nothing, and because he thought we had a good case.
And this is a case against the taking of the legal fees by
Yes.
the government?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so 6 years later, after being told I cannot do it because I've got to have, we had our hiccups. Mm-hmm. First of all, Grant Liddell sent a letter saying that you can't take us to court because you haven't got any property, you don't own any security, and we want to get paid straight away.
Right.
So Grant Cameron signed over his property as a security. If he lost the case, he loses his property because he was, and I thought, not many lawyers do that. So anyway, as hard as it was, we went down to Wellington, and a few times CCHR followed me all the way, and what happened? Next minute, the National Business Review saying that I took on the government